So this is a qualification match for GSL, guys. The GSL Season 2 qualifiers did happen, what, within 48 hours of the finals? 72 hours? Something like that. It was crazy. It was crazy fast. I got my hands on the replays, and we're going to cast some of the qualification matches and some of the more interesting matches, at least on paper. In the top right, it is Byun. In the bottom left, it is Maru. And they're having a grand old time chatting because they are good friends. As we've seen multiple times on stage or, you know, whenever they travel, they almost always travel together. So they're having a grand old time talking. I could attempt to read some of it. Wouldn't be worth it. So who knows? Okay, so we got TvT. I know that's a crying face. That's all I got. Oh, I actually know what they're talking about. I think they're talking about not being able to go to Dallas. That's Dallas right there. Dallas. Yeah, I think that's what they're talking about. Kyrgyzstan. Yeah, I think at least partially what they're talking about is having GSL Season 2 qualifiers, or Season 2 in general, excuse me, over DreamHack Dallas. I don't know, you know, specifically what else they might be talking about, but yeah, there you go. My limited Korean has helped us once again. But that is an important note here. Some players who tried to qualify last year did not try... Last season, literally, you know, 2 weeks ago, did not try to qualify for this season because DreamHack Dallas is happening in just a couple of days, actually. So it's, you know, I don't know when I'm going to upload this to YouTube, but it's happening like May 25th or something. So that's got to take priority for some of the people, as it is... Well, it's still a very difficult tournament because actually a decent amount of good players are going. And I would actually go ahead and guess, just based off some of the tweets and things I've seen, like Sinistro, I think, just tweeted, or Dimitri, just tweeted, you know, some of the key players that are going. But anyway, I would actually guess that there are the similar number of good players between GSL and DreamHack Dallas at this point. But anyway, we got a 2 racks in this TvT. Yes, Maru is playing Terran versus Terran. He generally wins these versus Byun, though, where his history versus Gumiho was less than stellar, actually. So I don't think we're going to see a full-on Maru swap to Protoss versus Terran anytime soon. And this kind of proves that. But Byun did 2 racks at home, so this is not nearly as scary. Maru did go for 2 Reapers of his own, which actually helped him out right there. Very possible if he hadn't gone for the second Reaper, maybe the micro goes a little more in Byun's favor. And he's facing 1 Reaper, 1 Hellion, which actually, if your Reapers are healed and you got a grenade, and you know their production might now be limited because they're building these add-ons, you could actually take a pretty good fight at that point. But fortunately, like I said, Maru did grab that second Reaper. Might not still be enough. I mean, he was, frankly, a bit greedy. Going for at least the tech lab on the factory, I think, was really the greediest part. Not grabbing the second Hellion. But it looks like he will survive. 5 Reapers is pretty typical for 5 racks, I would say. I mean, sometimes they do give up pretty early and they only go for 3 Reapers. But yeah, 5 Reapers off 2 racks... kind of normal. Byun, you know, sees an opportunity here. Once again, going to delay the command center. The Reaper almost dies. It is going to die. It was a misclick right there. Fortunately, the Cyclone, I guess it's a little bit of, it's you know, greedy in a sense, I suppose, but it's also safe in another sense. Basically, choose your poison, I suppose, for Maru. Either he has a second Hellion for the earlier, maybe 3 to 4 Reaper push in, or he has a Cyclone for when it was 4 to 5 Reapers and Byun's own Hellion. And unfortunately, the Cyclone did come out in time. That still was a pretty drastic difference of command center timings. Maru really should have had a faster one than he currently has. He's only like 10 seconds faster on the orbital at this point. So that was a solid start for Byun. Nothing game-breaking, but a solid start, who also gains a single worker lead. Half a worker, if you will. As the command center is only just finishing its orbital. What else do we got here? Both going for medevacs, actually. Maru is the first one pushing across the map. He's got 2 Cyclones. Byun only has 1. I would say, fortunately for Byun, he does miss the army of Maru, but then he also doesn't know that he's about to be attacked. Byun's second Cyclone, that's still his first, actually. He went into a tank. First Cyclone did stay at home. The tank is really crucial here. That's going to help out a lot. When it sieges... I think it could siege. It is a bit dangerous. If it sieges, the Cyclones lock on. It could die before it even gets the siege shot off. But once it does siege, the Cyclones get 2-shot by it, so Cyclones don't usually want to tango. Turns out this is somewhat favorable to Byun, who brings a very small amount of units, just the leftovers of his opening, over in that medevac, and is able to find... Oh yeah, okay. 6 SCVs, there you go. Well, 2, I think, for the command center in the beginning, but something like 3 to 4 SCVs with this drop so far. Tank is going to siege, but 1 more SCV will go down. Second one super, super low. Like I said, Byun actually gets the benefit of this. Maru's double Cyclone opener did not catch Byun before tank. Did not catch his units too disjointed. You know, maybe Byun would have been hyper paranoid about the drop and, you know, put more units up on the main base, for instance. And Byun, it seems like a silly drop with the limited amount of units that it has, but I suppose anything can matter. And it also does get a little bit of scouting, give the intentions of your opponent to a certain degree. So it's always nice to have the medevac, but it just looks so small. It just looks like it shouldn't have done what it did, but it did. Third command center is on the way for Maru. Byun is going for his own third as well. Both players going into that stim, but Byun's is drastically faster. Obviously, he got that second barracks much faster than Maru. And actually used it at some point, swapped it over to the tech lab, got the stim, right? So he has that. And perhaps combat shields too, much, much faster. He should have combat shields much faster. Maru could go double tech lab if he realizes the state of the game. That could be a choice, but right now, number one concern is defending this push out. Byun has got a chokehold on Maru's natural, bringing in the medevac to help out with its very finite amount of units. You know, stim is obviously helpful, but it's not necessarily the end-all be-all of breaking or holding this type of push. Because combat shields actually lets you survive that extra attack. That's usually, I would say in these smaller scenarios, sometimes more impactful, but certainly don't underestimate the DPS of the Marines from Byun, especially in a head-on fight, just Marine versus Marine. And then don't underestimate the concaving that can happen when you are the faster player. That is not a drop. That is a Raven run by. How many SCVs were killed? 8 SCVs, handful of Marines. Now, keep in mind, that was Maru's advantage. He didn't have stim, but he had 3 Ravens. And he uses them instead to go for a counterattack. Interference Matrix is not going to be available to break out of this. And if it was, I mean, maybe this is breakable. Take out at least 2 of the tanks and then auto-turret the rest, whatever you can. Double medevac drop to the main for Byun does not work out. Raven still trying to do their best back at Byun's base. Some energy left over. Combat shields does finally start up for Byun. That was much, much later, so Maru has a chance to catch up there. It looks like with the Liberator popping out and Byun having 0 anti-air, although he is grabbing Vikings at this moment, we can't push more into this. This is Byun pulling back kind of temporarily. There is a point in which you are just going to have less on the front lines as the aggressor in TvT, because you have to wait for your reinforcements. And you don't want to overstay your welcome, but then Byun doesn't want to give up a potential gain on the third CC timing just by leaving. So you do have him pulling back, and I think he will pull back maybe entirely eventually, or will be forced to, of course. Ravens, once again, going in the natural, looking for an attack opportunity. Liberator is also going in, however. This could even be a triple-pronged attack. Maru's medevac scouts that the army has moved. It didn't leave, it moved. And, I don't know, maybe he runs into that accidentally. Scan ahead reveals that Byun is kind of prepared for this. Those Vikings, they popped out and didn't go across the map immediately. Byun might have noticed that there was no more siege hopping of the Liberators going on, trying to chase after him. Intent was perhaps elsewhere with that. Or he might have just, you know, very coincidentally had those pop and then seen the Liberators. The Vikings, they got a Liberator. They don't get the second one. They don't get the Ravens either. The Ravens finally going home. Very bold 4th Command Center. Byun, he has gotten away with this in the past, is the thing. So as much as this is going to get absolutely bopped, yeah, just immediate cancel. Yeah, oh, we tried to, that was greedy, that was greedy. Maru gets a kill and a cancel. 400 minerals down the drain for Byun for being just a little greedy. But he has gotten away with that in the past. He has actually built that to fruition, so that's something we've seen before. Doesn't quite away with it this time, and is also broken on the front lines. It was a matter of time. Byun had so much army back at home. The double drop from Maru also kind of confirmed that, so the breakout did happen at the same time. Medevac lock-on grabs the Medevac. Good pickup with the tank. Good swap there from Byun, making the Medevac look a little bit like a Warp Prism with range. It's not supposed to. Oh my god. Oh, Byun. No. No, he did the thing. He was supposed to get +1 attack. Much faster than his +1 armor. If you had to choose, his +1 attack so much later. Maru gets a lead on the upgrades, has a lead in the armor supply as well. Tanks are siege for Byun, but it doesn't look like it might be enough. The interference is also still available on those 3 Ravens that end up living. Opportunity on the right side. SCV's pulled on the left. Here comes the concave for Byun. An upgrade down, however. It is a decent concave, and the tanks of Maru are starting to fall. Anti-armor missile was a little bit later, but how many SCVs are going to be given up for this? Oh, he's got to go for an immediate counterattack. Maru was reinforcing, and it looks like this will not end up being a problem for Maru to hold on to his reinforcements. That is kind of an important thing there. That sounds weird to emphasize that, but if Byun had been able to tackle the army that was in position and then find all of Maru's reinforcements, you know, tanks that are going across the map like ants on a map, right? That's when you lose suddenly enough to actually make the comeback very, very, very real. Byun runs and guns all the reinforcements, goes right to the heart of the 4th and 3rd base, actually, is the 4th building there, and then suddenly Maru's in a world of trouble. Fortunately for Maru, the reinforcements did not end up costing him. He just said, okay, yeah, you really are going to defend. Okay, fine, fair enough. Ran back home with all of his medevacs intact, and unfortunately still falls a little behind because the 4th CC was done for Byun. Already a planetary as well. Byun might have lost 33 SCVs, that's 25 something after the Raven harassment, but he has very quickly replaced them. Maru holds on to a slight lead in both departments, although it is now evaporating as the double drop from Byun finds a lot of SCVs, even takes a little bit of the fight. Definitely need to get out of there as 2-2 is just about to finish. Ravens were killed in the fight, by the way. Tank count was almost equalized. Again, could have been much worse for Maru, actually. It looks like that could have been worse for Byun, right? Because that was a scary moment, having to pull the SCVs, but... And it wasn't important that he did that. I don't know if he actually wins that fight if he doesn't pull the SCVs, but I think really what the hope is all of the time is that it's not just a desperate last stand. It's that, okay, I know I need to break this, and if I'm going to break it, I should really, really break it, and hopefully I can get a counterattack going. And because that didn't happen, this is actually kind of stalemated. That 4th CC was huge for Byun to recover from the SCV pool, of course, but because he had it, we're kind of at a very even game once again. 2-2 done for both players at this point. Once again, though, Byun forgetting that +3 attack. What happens when he does this? Oh, someone explain it to me. Yeah, I think he's just so fast, but he's not necessarily the most efficiently fast player in the world, but he is a very fast player. I think he just literally clicks so fast. Initially, he doesn't have the resources, and then just a second later he does, or something along those lines. This is a very common problem for Byun, very common. 5th base going down in location, Byun with a lot of confidence, trying to take over the map here. He does usually play the 8 racks, so 3-star port in this situation. TvT versus Maru, it's one of the most classic matchups that we have, I would say, actually. Maru, Byun, 8 racks versus 3-star port, but they both have gone 8 racks. So Byun, not necessarily playing the Maru that he, I don't know if he usually does, but a lot of the times in broadcast matches, he does play the 3-star port Maru, but it's a bit different this time around. Yeah, Byun is still the one getting ahead on the expansions, being a little bit bolder about it. Tank seems like a freebie, it's not really. Byun had a tank on the high ground, does help out right there. Maru just sharking around with a bit of smaller army, is forced to retreat. His bigger army, I think, was just slapped back by the reinforcements of Byun. Sensor tower also in position. Maru not going to be happy knowing that the 5th base is already on the way. It's already finished, in fact. His 5th is still not quite done and also not on location. We are reaching an almost maxed out point, however. So, of course, bank will matter, but right now the army supply is actually even favorable to Maru. He takes the concave first. The tanks are already sieged. Byun a little late to this party, honestly, and he will... Oh my god, take a lot of damage for that. He falls down a concerning amount of supply for taking that fight. Maru just quicker to the realization that they were going to fight. His tanks were sieged. The concave was there. I think he had a bit of a better one as well as Ben was pushing through that choke. but the tanks were sieged. I mean, that was like such a severe difference in the tank effectiveness of that fight. Now, Byun, as I said, was going to build up this bank. Now he's got to use the consistent economy, no longer as consistent, just try and recover from a bad fight. Down 30 army supply, almost 40. Still waiting on that +3 attack, too. Did that also affect that last fight? Damn, we didn't have the game heart pop up. But yeah, this is a very, very problematic position for Byun. He's not going to have time to recover. Maru knows the advantage he gave himself. He's going to push in for it, but on the backside, we got some Marines too, helping out against the tank depth line that Maru has. Liberators do show up, but they might be a little late. Tank on the high ground does get destroyed. Looks like the partial surround of Byun was not good enough to send Maru back home. The tank depth was just so much. There was tanks every which way we looked. And Maru's Marines barely stood strong, no doubt in part to this +3 attack that still is not done, finally finishes, but that could have been big for the defense right here. I think the Marines, they go down, actually. I think they die, and then the tanks are a little more vulnerable because of it. It was such a low number of Marines that Maru was using to just kind of, you know, body block, take up the time of Byun's Marines. I'm not sure all the tanks would have died. Maru probably still would have held the position, but maybe he's at half the tanks he is now, and that would have been slightly better. Byun is trying to go into a bit of an air war at this point, trying to get those Liberators noticing that Maru does no longer have any anti-air. Obviously instead of Marines. But the tank count needs to be high for that too. Byun's at 6, that's okay. Maru's at 12, make that 11. It's quite a lot, quite a lot. And Maru knows that he's got a chokehold too. And Byun, I was going to say, either has to be very, very patient and let these bases be given up, try and wait for these Liberators, or he's got to go for a humongous counterattack. And he has gone for that. Scan ahead reveals a planetary and tanks. The 5th base is a little more vulnerable, but still planetary when you're mostly run by with Marines. Not exactly what you want to see. Plus, it's not that far away from the actual army. Maru actually realizes this, unsieges, pulls back, deals with this no problem, and will probably just redirect his own aggression towards this base. Byun turning into a planetary. Not going to be able to mine from this. Byun is back down almost to his original 4 bases. He does get this right side one up. And that's going to be his lifeline for a little bit. Maru up about 20 workers. He is even on army supply, finally even on the upgrades too, although not quite. Another upgrade affecting many of these battles has been the +2 of the tanks. They're now at +3, but +2 is what reduces that kill shot on the Marines of Byun. Upgrades really being a key factor in Maru's comeback in this game. He was in a little bit of trouble. He was behind economically. But Byun lost his footing. He stopped upgrading his tanks, and just so late to that +3 attack when all these engagements were happening. A very fast-paced game when both players go for the 8 racks. Byun now trying to invest in that +2 vehicle weapons. It's really, you don't necessarily have to go to +3 attack for the tanks. It does help. It affects the splash as well, but it doesn't change the kill shot. And that's usually what is much more drastic. You can visually see it happening in the fight rather than just the little bits of extra damage. So if you're going to invest in something, +2 vehicle weapons is definitely a good investment, but it just seems so late. Byun does have 11 tanks, and if he positions them absolutely perfectly, he might be able to recover. He's going to actually win this fight over here. It looks like Maru does not take the position on the bottom side, I guess. That's what you would call it. Top side of his map, of course. He does kind of. Byun did not have vision on Maru's tanks. Maru took advantage of that. Liberators are forced to re-siege, but Byun starting to fight back a little bit. The tanks were well positioned as the majority of the army was distracted. The mobile army, let's say. The tanks were perfect, or almost perfect. And the Liberators are helping a lot. Supplies have evened up here. Byun does need another base, I think, to feel like he's really come back in this game, but he might be able to afford it. Maybe if he gets maxed out, starts to accumulate a bank. Tanks are not at siege. Now they are, however, and Maru is not going to be able to break this choke very easily. Maru himself now going into these Vikings. Still no additional starports for either player, I believe. Not really ever having that huge bank that would, or stalemate in this game either, that would kind of say, okay, we've slowed down. Let's both try and go to the air war, which TvT, you know, usually devolves into. Even if you do have 8 racks initially, if the game just doesn't end, we go into the air, which is kind of happening, but just not with a bunch of starports. Byun has fallen behind in the supply, seems so damn quickly, and Maru just having the bank and being comfortable building everything at once. Maybe Byun's struggling a little bit more, although Byun actually right now just not macroing. Simple as. Well, I mean, he's using all of his production, so I shouldn't say he's not macroing, but yeah, if he's going to bank, perhaps building that extra command center is the way to go. This is a very dangerous attack from Byun. He really wanted to get rid of his opponent's tanks, and he will get rid of one on the top side. This one barely surviving. His Marines took a bit of a beating from that with the help of the Planetary. Liberator for Maru finally pops out. No Vikings on the field for Byun. Now his tanks are a little bit lonely. Does siege up behind the brush a little bit too. This isn't going to be a terrible trade. In fact, it's a pretty good one for Byun. A lot more Marines than I expected or Maru expected. Liberator's not quite safe. Trying to siege up on those tanks does not work out right there. And we got ourselves a very even game once again. Byun successfully grabbing into the command center. Another 2 command centers. One on location. As he once again takes the map control. Maru has grown comfy on 7 bases almost. Maru, wait, 4, 7, 5, a lot of bases. A lot of bases for Maru. But you know what he has done? He's done the Terran thing. He's forgotten extra gases. He does not have enough gas to continue supporting this kind of air transition, if you would like to call it that. Producing 2 Vikings at a time is not necessarily a transition, but it is important. And a tank, obviously, as well. He actually does not have enough gas for that, much less the 2 tanks. I believe both of them should be on 2 factories. They are. Planetary does fall. Byun really starting to make some way here. If he had just dropped this bottom right corner, this would be, I think, the real start of the comeback. He is missing that opportunity. Playing a very dangerous game through this choke as well. Liberator from Maru is going to help out here. Maru going to go after the tanks that are obviously going to unsiege at this point as well. Maru looking for the engagement. Tanks must siege up for Byun. Must siege up. But every time they siege up, Liberator comes in. Every time they unsiege, Marines come in. Can't explain it. Yeah, Byun, unless he gets that air superiority, he's going to have a real tough time when it comes to chokes, because the chokes are going to stop Marines from entering in. And if Marines are the only thing you have against the Liberator, you see where that's going. Byun, he's going to find an alternative attack path, it looks like, kind of on the back side. This would be brilliant if he gets there. His tanks are quite low. Planetary can take a beating, especially if it gets mass repaired. Little concave, little spready right there. In fact, Planetary does go down. No building armor? Yeah, there is building armor. That still went down really, really fast. And now here comes the rest of Byun's army, taking advantage of the position that his initial army had opened up. Maru barely not holding on here, forced to flee. Tanks, where are they? He's got 5 of them, but they're all spread out. Byun now taking a supply lead for the first time in I don't know how long. Maru on the ropes. Byun once again financially stable, although he also is reaching that gas problem that Terrans typically do at 23 minutes, just forgetting to add on the gases. And Byun loses a couple of tanks that he had left behind. This Planetary no longer mining, but Maru still has so many other bases. He's actually going to flee. He's going to move this base to a safer location while he still can. And then hope to God this base just is getting away with, I guess. I mean, he should be mule dropping it, but the game is so tense and so close, he's not thinking about it. 4 orbitals to 4 orbitals, extra command centers for both parties. Planetary does in fact fall. Maru gonna go for it, having Liberator siege, go for the last couple of tanks, doesn't grab the one that's very, very weak. Byun accumulating a force to the north side, can redirect his aggression over to that with a plain orbital. I don't know exactly where his army was going. You might want to check for the top left corner, but he should also check for the bottom right. Very fortunate that Maru has yet to use it. I mean, at some point, theoretically, he could have sent 20 SCVs over there, and they would never have been scouted. But still not even turning into a Planetary. I just priority elsewhere for the limited attention that us humans can give to a game. Byun is in total command of this map at this point. He's up almost 30 army supply. He's got that crucial +2 attack, and while Maru is continuing to invest in further upgrades, I just don't think they're that impactful, and now he's not rich. He never really had that big of a bank anyway. They've just been constant battles happening over and over and over again. But now he really can't just afford all willy-nilly. So he thinks it's important enough. Liberator does go down. Marines clearly not going to win this fight, but why aren't they winning the fight? Where is the rest of Byun's army? Well, it's down to the south, of course. Going to go after this very plain command center. Byun sends his tanks, I think... no? I thought he sent more army. He did send some more army up to the north side, but he already has some tanks siege up. And some tanks in no man's land that aren't really helping, but maybe he can hold this choke with the tanks that he does have. Liberators are available, however, and that is a big problem. Never mind, Liberator goes down. No more Liberator. Now Maru trying to go up a choke against the tanks while also losing his bases back at home. Maru losing the last tank of his defense, forced to flee into his main, I believe, and just hold on to his production. Maru in a very difficult place at this point. He's basically base race territory. The army supplies within 20, which is doable for Maru if he just finds perfect engagement after perfect engagement. So far, though, taking some losses every time he tries to move around while dealing very little to Byun's army. He does hole up in the main base. Byun did not try and go for it, just went for the easy command centers. Big engagement on the other side of the map, however. Byun going in for the win. The tanks are going down. The Marines of Maru are winning, however. 2 tanks left over for Maru. All the medevacs down for Byun. Wow, what a close game, but Byun still has these bases off to the right side. He still has more tanks to reposition should he need to, and he is the one that is producing much better than Maru. Maru had a chokehold on Byun for a good portion of this game. I don't know, like 5 minutes, right? Byun was on the ropes, 100%, but Byun is going to emerge victorious in this truly mirror matchup. 8 racks to 8 racks. And Byun, who is generally the guy who does it. You know, I mean, I don't want to officially declare the winner right now and raise Byun's hand, but he might be the better one at 8 racks versus 8 racks. I do think, as far as what we think of Byun, scrappy, fast, bold, sometimes brash. That's Byun, and that's what kind of works within 8 racks. I don't know if that's exactly what got him to win this game, but most of his supply is in workers, to be fair. Maru's still holding on to a 20 supply gap. You know, he's still down that supply, but like I said, it's technically winnable if Byun messes up here. You know, Byun's tanks aren't siege. His Marines are a little bit unhealthy. And they try to run into these tanks. Some of them getting one shot could be a big problem. But Byun, I think he realizes that he's going to win this game. No longer the urgent, frantic game of the past. Byun is once again calmed down.
Hostile forces
looking for the perfect engagement.
Arming raid defenses.
WTII. Thank you very much for that big raid. Hello, everyone. I think you've missed a banger of a TvT, as it does seem to be coming to a close. Starts off with the 2 racks versus 1 racks. Factory expand, but still. Gets Byun favored, then it gets pretty Maru favored, then Byun just pulls it back. I don't know how. Some of the additions of the Liberator ended up tripping both players up at different times. And is trying to keep Maru alive. Maru somehow affording to keep pace on the reinforcements. Weirdly enough, they're still within 20 army supply. It feels like Maru should have fallen at some point, but you can see that Byun's economy not that got good. 50 SCVs, maybe oversaturated somewhere, running out of minerals. Yes, definitely. But Byun should still win. You got a push in from Maru that does cost him quite a few of his own Marines. Yeah, that was not good enough. Now a 40 supply deficit as the Viking. Oh, he takes up the Liberator with his last breath. And Byun could go for the run-by, a very small run-by, but Maru can't afford to have units elsewhere. So this is going to be a perfect maneuver. Maru now having to hurry, which is just going to be bad news for him. Although Byun is starting to... Nope, Byun's got this. Yep. The hurrying, the franticness finally got Maru, and Byun does win game 1. Wow. Didn't expect such a good game 1 to start off the stream. Thank you also to Badger Man for the 7 months. In the bottom left now, up 1, he is Byun. And in the top right, we got Maru. What a game. I haven't seen a good TvT in a while. Maru didn't want to play TvT versus Gumiho, and didn't have the Terrans, and the last TvT before that I think was from the qualifier, and it was just okay. And then TvTs simply don't exist in these open cups we have. It's clearly a banned matchup along ZVZ. So we just don't get it that often. When we do, I'm glad to see that it's still pretty cool. I don't know if I'm ready to say that Maru is washed up. First of all, Maru loses to Byun every now and again. It's not uncommon, although I think his winning record is better. Second of all, that Protoss thing ended up failing miserably. But I kind of understand the choice. I don't think he does it again. And then we might see Maru dominate GSL again. Byun's going to go for the 2 racks. It did work out really well last game. It did give him a bit of a lead. A bit of a lead is correct. You know, initially, a very small lead. A little bit faster on the second SCV, basically. Like, you got 1.5 SCVs ahead. And then they ended up helping him kind of the most with that drop, weirdly enough. He was able to send the units from the 2 racks. Well, I guess it had ripple effects, actually. So it wasn't like the opening, you know, killed the command center, and then that was just a slam dunk victory for Byun. But it opened up a little bit of his opener, then matched Maru's basically in terms of economy. Yet it exceeded Maru's opener in terms of technology. Then that drop happened, which was really good. But the stim being much faster allowed Byun that very difficult to break move in the natural. And yeah, everything else that happened in the game, right? But it did have the ripple effects from the 2 racks opener, so that might be more so why Byun's thinking of doing it. He wants to be in that control position once again, not just for the early game, but for the mid game as well. Maru might have lost last game after a lot of back and forth, but we didn't, I think, see Maru's typical play versus Byun. I mean, his somewhat atypical play, the 8 racks choice, almost worked. It did. It should have worked, arguably. But Maru does a lot of the time against Byun go 3 starport and just a really, really slower pace, which I feel like historically ends up benefiting Maru. There's so many instances of these two fighting, and then Byun looks like he's going to win with the 8 racks, and you're like, rally, rally, rally. And then Maru is just cool, calm, and collected, and is like, sorry, you can't win today. It's like, oh, okay, then. And that might be what happens here, if nothing else goes awry in the first 10 minutes. We did have Maru play a very safe opener. He did scout this time, so the 2 racks was seen at home. Decides to continue along with his build, of course, but then high ground command center makes it a lot easier to deflect. You do have a Reaper hop-up spot, but it's not that much farther away from the ramp. I guess there's another Reaper hop-up spot, but the point is, limited amount of opportunities for Byun to get all of his Reapers on the high ground means he's always going low ground to high ground. A little less than ideal. So that's a solid hold from Maru with very little economic loss. Yeah, the command center on the high ground is a little, but it's much better than what happened in the last game. His orbital is done. It's already producing 2 SCVs at a time. Byun's orbital is just now beginning, which in the last game, it was a 10-second difference, something like that. And Byun had a 1.5 worker lead, and now it's the opposite. So a little safety went a long way there. Maru is going to his own medevac once again, and then tank is on the way. Byun not just going for a medevac, but also a liberator. I'm just wondering if he is going to do a little forward push early on. Maybe not expect to commit to it. Oh, this could just be for harassment. I mean, you could do medevac in the main, liberator in the natural, right? His real power spike isn't going to hit until stim is done, but, you know, a couple of tanks, a liberator on this ramp, and you would have a bit of a contain. Ravens for Maru once again, which you could maybe argue that the Ravens at home would have helped them break out sooner in that last game, but it is a hard argument. I don't think there's actually a guarantee that that's true, even if he got 2 or 3 of the tanks disabled, and then auto turrets. I mean, it's very possible it would have worked, but Maru was on a very low number of units, aside from those very powerful Ravens. You know, the run-bys ended up working in some degree. So I don't know. But Ravens are oftentimes critical, and Byun is notably forgoing Ravens 2 times in a row. So this is the same setup as last game. The question is, does Maru play into the 8 racks of the 3-star port? By going into the Ravens, you're kind of already going into a slower pace, which end up being more frantic anyway. Even with the Ravens, we had them, going for the run buys as opposed to staying at home. I wonder if this time around he will just stay at home with them. He will just go into a very slow and steady 3-base, 3-star port onto 4-base, obviously. So far as Ravens are staying at home. But now they're going to shift click around the map. Liberator's going to see that, so maybe not, maybe not. Byun does move forward with some of his army, but clearly only some of it. So no tank contain attempted at this point in time. We're getting ready for it. Sim is done after all, so it seems there's no reason not to. One thing that can be at least guaranteed for Byun to a certain degree is that he's never going to be the one pounced upon. The Ravens, if they surprise him, somehow they're like ninjas and they come out from left field, they can kind of get a blitz, but realistically it's Byun's Marine Stim army that's going to have map control and going to be able to dictate a little bit of the game at this point in time. Maru has to be extremely careful moving his army out. His Ravens can't be mismicroed, his tanks can't be all unsieged, his Marines have to have at least some blocking on the front of the tanks to help them as well. I mean, Jesus Christ. Maru is so defensive right now. I think he's more defensive than he was in the first game, and he was still pretty defensive then. But look how many tanks he has. It's like there's no way in hell I'm getting dropped. I know you have faster stim, jackass. And I am not moving. This is a little reminiscent of the 2-base versus 3cc games we had, 6-7 years ago. But, if the other guy was 2-basing, if you got faster stim, you got faster medivacs. I mean, you really benefited a lot from playing turtly up until, I don't know exactly what time, but maybe 8 or 9 minutes. And then, even then, pushing out against it was still a little difficult, but that was the way you played. It was just super turtly for a while. Maru finally gets something on the other side of the map. His Ravens, no, his medivacs are now coming. His Ravens do stay at home. Somewhere around here. I'm clicking on them. I don't see them. That's what happens when they're around here. They're there. 2 medivacs are a little more threatening than this one Cyclone that we got going on right now. Sees the on-location 3rd base, kind of gets a nod for that, knows that he does have to move out for his own 3rd eventually, but this double drop is going to try and open up that opportunity. Not particularly good drop, though, it seems like. Yeah, not really. It does grab the tank, to be fair, but ideally it would have dropped on the tank rather than into the tank fire. Medevac in the main base might finally go down. Indeed it will. And Maru does not find the opening he was hoping for with that distraction, Byun doesn't pull back to go deal with that. So he scans ahead, sees the army still in position. Good scan, too. Sees the tanks kind of cleverly positioned behind this. But that is a lot of army for Maru. Byun clearly has reinforcements back at home, something that Maru's drops did scout. So once again, forced to retreat. Maru not too far behind on the 3rd CC overall, honestly. He is down some workers, but he is ahead in army supply. Upgrades looking a lot better for Byun this time, starting both of them at the same time and also faster than Maru. Ugly choke for both parties, but Maru was the one with the siege tank, so that's uglier for Byun. Combat chills wasn't done for Maru, though, so, yeah. Either way, these bridges are going to be annoying for both parties, I would say. As soon as you get past them, then it's whatever, but not like playing around this one. Might see the debris broken eventually, too, to, again, further reduce the choke opportunities, but it's up to the players. Maru not going to take him out now, instead trying to get a little bit farther ahead, finding that concave on the backside. Byun thought he had more of a stable position with his tanks. He moved a lot of his, well, not a lot, actually. He moved some of his army away and has lost almost all of his tanks. He's down to 2. Maru has 9. This seems like easy. I don't know if an easy victory, but a very good place to be. Maru is still down economically, but that tank count, it's amazing. And he's got 3 Ravens that are just going to continue taking out Byun's tanks. Byun might be down only 10 army supply, but Even if you had 20 more army supply, if you have no tanks and you run into 9 tanks, you're going to lose. No success on the other side. Byun has lost his positioning, has lost his natural, has lost his footing in the game. Suddenly, in the blink of an eye, loses his +2 attack. Byun and plus attack, why? No matter how it happens, he can't get it. Can't get it fast enough. Yeah, this is game over. Maru is only down in supply because of the workers. The tanks are going to be so difficult to break out of, even if he does break out of them, because they aren't protected right now. So many Marines will die in the process. Anti-armor missile to help out here. Byun is going to take out almost every last tank before Maru really gets his Marines set in position. Upgrades also not in effect as of yet, but they will be, further giving Maru a win opportunity the longer the game goes. And even without that 2-2, apparently, he still wins this very, very small, scrappy battle. More reinforcements coming along as well. Scans ahead, sees 2 tanks, only one of them siege still. Yeah, Maru's Marines are quite injured. But there's that 2-2 finally hitting, I think, towards the tail end of that fight. So he has multiple paths to victory. It looks like Maru did respect the attack quite a bit. Lifted his 3rd CC. He never got above 50 SCVs, it feels like. Or about 51. I think he maybe got exactly 50. I'm not exactly sure why that happened, but I think it was just coincidental timings. At any point that Maru was like, okay, I can go back to SCV building. Oh shit, I just lost SCVs. And that is the only reason that Maru isn't 100% winning at this point. But he is winning. That natural command center snipe might have been the nail in the coffin, assuming everything goes correctly from here on out. I am doing a little bit of the pro gamer thing, but assuming that everything goes correctly from here on out, Maru should win. Maru's got these 2-2 upgrades, and he's got 20 more army supply, and he's sharking around for the victory march. He wants to actually end this game. Byun is doing the one thing in his arsenal that would probably work, which is going for a base trade. Big old drop into the main base, right on top of Maru's defensive tank. Some Marines trying to respond. His 2nd tank sieging up to try and help, but we got ourselves a down and dirty game. Maru is going to break into Byun's base. Byun has already broken into Maru's. No one's production is safe. But when it comes down to a head-to-head fight, Maru's army should win. Vikings getting torn down as Byun not paying attention. No mining on the 3rd CC. Not that you have production to actually use that mining. SCVs being pulled. Buildings being lifted. Everything going to shit all at once. Maru is potentially not going to win. He still holds on to that army supply. He still holds on to the upgrades. He should be able to kill Byun's +2 attack once again. You're never getting it. Somehow, some Marines hole up in the corner, ready to jump on the tanks, perhaps, if they're left alone. This is no longer super legible. Byun did exactly what he needed to do to make this as difficult as possible. Somehow, Maru's 3rd CC totally untouched. Way to go, Marines. Way to fail. But again, no production opportunity. I guess eventually he usually land these right now and produce Marines while he has supply. All of his supply ended up being in the natural, something that Byun has yet to take out. That is weirdly crucial at this point in time. Maru, I don't think, has picked up on it. He could add 3 more Marines to his army, guys. Okay? 3 more, maybe even 6 more Marines. I say that's important. But he's starting to lose out in the supply depot, so he's missed the opportunity. Command center going to go down for Byun. No, that's not his last command center. He has one that floated off to the corner. Maru, however, is starting to rebuild. He's building supply depots off to that 3rd CC, which somehow 6 Marines totally missed. They should have jumped on that, killed all the SCVs, perhaps even killed the command center. And this is now going to be the last bastion of Maru, a very important one. I guess he also has this base and this base, but this is where he's going to make his stand, is my point. And he's making the stand on the low ground, abusing the choke. It's Byun. Well, he's going to pull the boys, of course. Hey, pull the boys. Definitely not a bad idea here. But it's not just the army supply that Byun is up against. It's also the 2-2 Marines. They're going to just slaughter Byun's. There's really not going to be any contest here. The only way that Byun wins is if Maru pushes into Byun's tanks, which there's no reason for Maru to do. I think we're back to this being a pretty clear game. I think we're there. 3 Marines, very lazy. Okay. But, I mean, even if he saves the command center, Byun should know that he's pretty SOL. Oh, he knows about the bottom right base. Saw it even producing. You got to scan with that before it lifted? I don't know, but it's okay. This base is actually pretty safe. Yeah, Byun realizes landing there is not going to work out. Maru is tailing him since he has 3 orbitals, 3 scans available. Barely skirts off to the side. Is going to head over to the bottom right base. Medevac boost will run out eventually, though, and he's got to kind of make a stand there. Not a particularly important place to make your stand, though, and, not the best place either. SCVs get slaughtered, Marines get slaughtered, and this is GG. Maru will tie up the series 1-1. In our final game here, in the bottom left, we got Byun. In the top right, it is Maru. The GSL qualifiers have a bit of a wonky format. I'm going to try to explain it to the best of my knowledge. They say you don't really know something unless you can explain it simply. That's going to really be tested here. Basically, this match is the round 1 winners, I am pretty sure. So that means that no matter who wins, so whoever wins here, start things off. Whoever wins here is actually already in the GSL. All right, round 2, winners is entirely for seeding, which I think is really what's confusing about this. So whoever wins here is in GSL. Whoever loses has a chance to go to the losers bracket of round 1 and then get into the losers bracket of round 2, which only has 2 spots of the groups and they're also in groups. It's not just like a whole bracket. So yeah, that's about as much as I can explain it. Not really going to be the best audibly, but it's honestly not the best visually either. Wikipedia tried its best, but like round 2 winners has like a qualifying match in the round of 4, which actually isn't true. The qualifying match is this one, actually. It's a little weird looking. But the point is, plenty of chances for the loser here, and the winner gets GSL no matter what. It's just a question of if they get to the round of 12 or the round of 8. Sorry, I'm allergic to complicated formats. Anyway. We got Maru bringing it back game 2, right? He does get the victory, but it was damn close. It was potentially nail-biting. Potentially. When the dust settled, Maru was very clearly in a good position. A better position, shall we say. He had 3 command centers left over. 1 was unscouted somehow. And he was able to go back to that base and cover it, and that kind of solidified the victory. Only if he had to spend even more time on Byun's side of the map. And Byun was able to actually catch all the command centers. Do we throw in the potential of a Byun victory? Maru got the lead earlier on. He played it nice and safe against the scouted 2 racks. That gave him a better position in game 1. Very slightly. Didn't really impact the game drastically, I suppose. And then when his push came to shove, Byun really was in a lot of trouble. Byun, frankly, mishandled the engagement around the middle part of the map. It didn't have to go that way at all. But Byun, thinking his tanks on the high ground would have been, be able to defend themselves, and then they get kind of taken down one by one, and suddenly that opens up the opportunity for the attack into the natural. I think Byun very serious, probably as soon as he started to move the rest of his army around, did he realize that this was going to be a mistake. He realized that Maru was going to catch him, and he was maybe already thinking of the backup plan. Okay, when exactly am I going to doom drop here? But that wasn't a totally obvious state of the game where Maru was like, I clearly win here. Let's just move into this. And a lot to do with the positioning and losing track of Maru's army to a certain degree. A little early scuffles, not really mattering at this point. Maru not facing the 2 racks. Very comfortable getting his command center on the natural. Byun's command center also done. It is going to be a worker lead for Byun, however. Looks like he 1 racks expanded. I was talking all of that. 3rd gas. Yeah, pretty identical. I was gonna say, there's one thing we haven't seen yet is a 2 starport build, which still has its place in TvT, but not gonna be this one. Kind of an odd looking attack, but one that finds success. Byun has his own small attack without the tank. So this is usually what you'd expect. Including the tank is a kind of a bold move from Maru, but one that has so far worked out as Byun is forced to flee from his own natural, and now is going to run down into a tank whenever he tries to push out. This is actually really bad news for Byun by the looks of things. He does hold on to the worker lead, but he's not mining with that worker lead. Lock-on did happen on the medevac. It is going to survive, just barely. Things settle, but not in favor of Byun, who has to get his natural. He has to, as soon as possible. No interference matrix, but an auto turret could be big. I don't know about this break. That was a bit awkward. It's going to be good enough, though. Maybe we save the tank. Yeah, and he shoots the Cyclone before being picked up. Nicely done. Ensuring the medevac can escape with the most expensive, important unit there, and it doesn't even escape. It's like, I'm going to stay around. There's no Cyclone. I don't have to worry. I feel like you have to worry a little bit. That is an injured medevac. But Maru wants to return some of the damage that he's been taking to Byun's medevac as well. Both of them losing 8 and 7 SCVs. It's Byun who lost a tank, though, and that might have always gone down in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, that's why you won't... Yeah. Maru was 100% playing with fire at that. Almost deserved that he lost. And he died to the auto turret. Anyway, what's talking about? Oh, I mean, Byun's tank might have been a sacrifice no matter what. Just, it was a difficult position going down that ramp, but sieging it on the ramp that almost blocked the rest of the units was not the prettiest. And now I got Byun with 3 Ravens. Maru is producing his 3rd. Byun is producing his 4th. You don't usually see that. Triple Raven has been totally common for a long time at this point. So is 2, so is 1, so is 0, which is what Byun has been doing up until this point. 4 to 5 have made an appearance in TvT in the last 3 years. As people continued experimenting with ideal amounts of Ravens, but it's still a bit uncommon. Barracks coming down for both players, but Maru's barracks are faster, so he's producing Marines faster, and he is producing Stim much faster, as well as combat shields, actually. So he just killed something there. Scans to see what Byun is doing. He actually gets a lot of good intel with this, but Byun, he was able to see that it is double tech lab. He's going to know that Stim and combat shields are going to be done at the same time. This is pretty scary. I think he maybe has to go for his own double tech lab, too. I don't know actually what the play would be here. But that scan from Maru revealed that it must be a 3rd CC. Those barracks are way too late, and the barracks are late. So that's good for Maru in both departments, right? A medevac drop in the main base does catch Maru a little off guard. A couple SCVs have gone down. Byun hoping for an opportunity to attack the front perhaps as well, but then loses the medevac and loses the Marines. That was not the plan. I can almost guarantee that. Tanks were moving forward. They decide not to. Ravens now the only thing moving forward. Looking for a huge auto turret run by, I guess. It is very possible after dealing that damage that Maru is at least moving to the 3rd after he cleans up the main. So the army's really out of position. Scan from someone. Oh, the natural? I don't know where that scan was, honestly. Without game heart, I'm totally useless. Auto turrets in the natural aren't very successful. Auto turret in the main are actually going to be a little more successful. And then, technically, he could even try and go to the 3rd. 1 Raven not quite going to go down here. How many SCVs are going to die? 21. 22. 22 SCVs. That is really, very good. Yeah. Byun definitely needed that. He's now ahead by 15 workers, but he's still down by 15 army supply. Maru also has Stim and combat shields done. Byun did not opt for double tech lab, and so his combat shields is so much later. He also got 1-1 later. Maru has a huge timing at this point. Combat shield 1-1, 10 army supply lead. His Ravens are full of energy. Byun's just lost a little bit. This is a huge opportunity for Maru. He would love to get the interference matrix. That would guarantee the close-in on Byun's natural. He's going to go for it. There's one of them. There's another one. Third one not available. It is available. Yeah, it is. Yeah, oh, and this tank just sacrificed itself. So it was like, yeah, it seems like a good day to die. Byun kind of looking a little screwed at this point. Remember, the upgrades are actually even, but combat shields isn't. Oh, no. No combat shields for Byun's boys in red. 2 tanks looking awfully useless to the north, and Byun's only hope are 4 Ravens going for counterattacks, killing another handful of SCVs. Not much of a hope. Not much. Byun forced to stop mining from his natural and his third. Maru happily mining, even though on less SCVs. More interference matrix, more dead tanks. And the final hurrah of Byun is going to come through here. Tries to get as good of a spread as he possibly can. Ravens on the backside, drop down those auto turrets. Might just be able to clear this up, but Maru has established a significant lead. And look at that, didn't even clean it up. Maru rallies after a somewhat painful game 1 loss, because he probably should have won that one too. And wins it 2-1, advances to the GSL. Byun goes to the losers bracket of round 1, and we'll see if he wins there. So, GG's.